Jayadvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopavina Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Pradeep Dham ki Jai. Jagannath Puri ki Jai. Ganga Mai ki Jai. Ramana Mai ki Jai, Tulsi Devi ki Jai, Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. All glories to you, Samaveta. All glories to you, Samaveta. All glories to you, Samaveta. Om Premanande. This is Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, text 32. Atmahopam yena sarvatra samam pashyati orjana sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. He is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Purport. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Nachatasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakritamaha. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities. And in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmiditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Gaganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Holi Priye Vanchako Patadurubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Atmaupam Yena Sarvatra Samam Pashuti Yojana Sukham Va Yariva Dukkham Sayogi Paramo Mataha. Here in this chapter, Lord Krishna has been explaining the Ashtanga yoga system. This is the system of sitting postures and breathing exercises and meditation. That's somewhat familiar in one form or another in the West. The Sucho Deshe Pratishtapya Stiramasanamatmanaha Natyutritam Nati Nicha Kairajana Kushotanam Tachakagram Manakritva Yata Chitendriya Kriya Upavishyasana Yogamatma Vishute. One has to go to a sacred place and then put a suitable sitting place, not too high, not too low, with kusha grass and deerskin. One makes the seat, then one sits there with the neck and back and head erect, and the eyes half open and half closed, focused on the tip of the nose, controlling the mind. One meditates on the super soul within the heart and attains perfection. So this system has been described really in brief in this chapter. And this is the last verse in that description. Atmopam yena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjana. The perfected yogi sees all living beings equally. We heard that also in the fifth chapter. Anyway, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Puriyashta. Vandita Samadarshana. The learned person sees all living beings with equal vision, because he doesn't see just the external form. He sees that within the form of the body is the spirit soul. And the spirit soul is equal everywhere. The idea of equality on the material platform is a hopeless idea, a foolish idea. The idea, and it's the idea these days, everyone is equal. Egalité. But there's no equality materially. There's a difference between a fool and a genius, between a skinny weakling and a heavyweight boxer, between a sick person and a healthy person, between a child and an adult. Where's the equality? On the material platform, the equality is not there. It's only imagined to be there. But the real equality, or we make an equality, well, we're all French, or we're all human beings, so there's equality. Some of us may be rich, some of us may be poor, but we're all French. Yeah, that's true. But that's not the real platform of equality. The real platform is that we're all spiritual living beings. Everyone is Atma, the soul within the body. Even materially, we're all French, but the French human beings will exploit the French animals. So it's imperfect, an imperfect sense of shared identity. We all share the identity that we're French. That means we hate the Germans. We're all French, but we're French human beings, so we kill the animals. But when we see that we're all spirit soul, then that's the platform of true equality. And on that platform, one sees no difference between a Brahmin, an elephant, a dog eater. He's all equal. And Atmopamyena, one sees all living entities in comparison to one's own self. Atmava sarvabhuteshu yapashati sapandita. The Chanakya Pandit says that the learned person sees all living beings to be like himself. Not that I'm the only living entity in existence, and everything else is contingent on my perception. I'm a living being, and I can understand that you're also like me. I don't like to be pinched. You don't like to be pinched. I don't like to suffer. You don't like to suffer. I like to be happy. You like to be happy. I like to eat. You like to eat. You love your family. I love my family. So one can see, I have thoughts. You must have thoughts. I have feelings. You must have feelings. I have desires. You must have desires. Oh, we recognize these things. And the fully self-realized soul sees that in all living beings. The cow also has desires. He also loves its family. He also doesn't like to suffer. Also wants to be happy. Also has feelings. The dog, the ant. So the self-realized person sees by comparison to himself. And therefore he's sympathetic to everyone. You know, we feel an affinity for our fellow French citizens because we're all French, or we're all American, or we're all black, or we're all Chinese, or we're all this or that. But the self-realized person has affinity for all living beings and sympathy for all living beings because he sees them all as spiritual souls and as part and parcel of Krishna. Amidam Jiva Bhuta, Jiva Loka, Jiva Bhuta Sanata. All of the living beings are part of Krishna. So Sukham Vayariva Dukkam. They may be happy, they may be distressed, and their happiness is like my happiness, and their distress is like my distress. I want to be happy, so why should I not want them to be happy? I don't like to suffer, why should I want them to suffer? The persons in the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, take pleasure when others suffer. We hear that Mrigari, the hunter, was half killing animals, and he was happy to see them suffer. I remember when I was a child, one friend showed me a little trick. We'd go to some stream and there'd be some little fish, this big. And he would catch some fish and then he would train a magnifying glass on it until the heat would explode the body of the fish. And this was, enjoyable. Science, anyway, there's so many examples how these things are going on. The persons in the mode of passion and ignorance aren't able to sympathize with others. Or they sympathize, they love their families, but your family can die. Because they're driven by sense gratification, by intense desire for enjoyment. They can't see properly. Their vision is distorted. Or they're intoxicated. When they're intoxicated, they're drunk and crazy people can do anything. They lose any kind of qualities. But the yogi sees Krishna everywhere, and along with Krishna sees the living beings everywhere. Sayogi Paramo, he's the highest yogi, in my opinion, Krishna says. There may be other yogis who are interested in their own self-realization, and that's very good. Prahlad Maharaj says that there are many munis who go off to the secluded place to meditate, but I'm not like them. I don't want to attain liberation, leaving all these fools behind. They should also go back to God. Well, this is the perfect yogi. In other words, the devotee is the perfect yogi, because he cares not only about himself, but about others. Then Srila Prabhupada, Sukham Vayariva Dukkam, he sees all living beings equally in their happiness and distress. And Srila Prabhupada defines happiness and distress. Distress comes from forgetfulness of Krishna. There's so many kinds of distress. The distress brought by war, the distress brought by poverty, by hunger, by disease, by mental disturbances, by natural catastrophes. But all of these distresses have one cause, that we've forgotten Krishna. When we forget Krishna, then Maya slaps us this way and that, and we suffer. Otherwise everything else is symptomatic. In medicine, I think they have a term, treatment is symptomatic, which means we really can't treat your disease. So we're going to treat the symptoms. That's the best we can do. Treatment is symptomatic. We don't know the cause of the disease, or we don't know the cure for the disease, but we can treat the symptoms. that means the disease remains. But we just try to deal with the effects. So in the material world, the mundane welfare workers, that's what they do. Someone's hungry, they provide food. Someone's mentally disturbed, they provide a psychiatrist. There's a cyclone or a flood, they provide relief workers to repair people's homes or whatever it is. But they don't actually solve the problem of the living being. The living being remains forgetful of Krishna and therefore continues to rotate in the cycle of birth and death, being bashed by the power of the illusory energy of fire, suffering again and again, in lifetime after lifetime. So they only treat the superficial signs of suffering, but they don't get to the root cause of the suffering. Nor do they know how to bring happiness. They do something, whatever it may be, they provide entertainment or something. But that happiness is not substantial. It doesn't last. It doesn't last. The real happiness comes from remembering Krishna. The cause of happiness is knowing Krishna, to be the supreme enjoyer, the supreme owner of everything, and the supreme friend. There are so many rich men, wise men, who are not happy because they've forgotten Krishna. So the perfect yogi knows these things, and he therefore tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. He knows, I was suffering, I was miserable. Now I'm happy, chanting Hare Krishna. Why only me? Why shouldn't others be happy in Krishna consciousness? Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. He wants everyone to be happy. And since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world. There's so many philanthropists, they're giving endowments to universities and hospitals and orphanages and welfare programs. And they're admired for their philanthropy, libraries. But here, the devotee is the best philanthropist. The best philanthropist. Why? Because he's distributing Krishna consciousness. He's distributing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna, Prema Pradayate. He's distributing love for Krishna. So he's the true welfare worker. There have been programs for fighting poverty, fighting disease, they'll conquer polio. So they conquer polio, but they have cancer, they have AIDS, they have COVID, they have this.
Monkeypox.
Multipox?
Monkeypox.
Multipox.
Monkeypox. They cured smallpox, now they got monkeypox.
They cured smallpox and they have big pox,
No,
multipox.
like a monkey
Oh,
animal.
monkeypox. So whatever disease they cure, the next one in line is in line to follow. They, I forget under which U.S. president, Lyndon Johnson declared a war on poverty. And poverty won. Not that they were able to wipe out poverty. According to karma, someone must be poor. Someone must suffer disease. Someone must be run over by a truck. Nothing we can do about it. And even if we can do something, the next misery comes and smashes the person in. So that philanthropy is misguided. The Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur called it harm-giving kindness. We think we're doing good, but we may not be doing good at all. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of a child who was suffering from typhoid, I think. And the doctor ordered him to fast, told his parents the child should fast. No food for this child. But while the parents were away, the child said to his brother, "I'm so hungry, couldn't you just give me a little cake?" His brother, "Yes, why not?" But the result was that the child became more sick. When the Americans liberated the Nazi concentration camps, the prisoners were so pathetic, they looked like skeletons, and they were terribly undernourished and on the verge of death. And the American soldiers naturally felt sympathy for them and were throwing them to the prisoners their own cans of food, the rations of food, G rations they're called. They're throwing them there. And the doctors among the inmates in the camp were telling people, "Don't take it. Don't take it, because you haven't been eating, and this is like power food for soldiers, full of protein and all of that. If you take this, you won't be able to digest it." But the people were so hungry that they did. They took it anyway. So many. And died. These were people who survived all the suffering of the camps, but when the day of liberation came, they died because of the generosity and kindness of the American soldiers. So harm-giving kindness. The intention was very good, but the result was terrible. So the attempt to solve the troubles of the living being by ordinary welfare work are misguided, and it leaves in place the real cause of the living being suffering. He thinks, now I'm all right because I got some food, or I got some medical attention, or they gave me a decent apartment to live in, or they gave me clothes, or they gave me this, or they gave me that. But his real problem, and therefore he goes on happily ignoring his real problem. Prabhupada gave another example, that you go to visit some big man, beer lot it would have been in India, and you meet him, you meet his sons, you meet the family. And then some time later you're driving in your car and you see the son of this rich man, and he's dressed in rags and he's tapping on your window, begging for food. So if you roll down your window and give him some bread, are you a philanthropist? Are you helping him? Are you solving his problem? Is it all right? The real thing is, you say, wait a second, I know you. You're the son of this rich man. You get in my car. And you take him back to his father. Then all of his problems will be solved. Otherwise, you feed him today, he'll be hungry tomorrow. And his real problem is not that he's hungry, it's that he's forgotten who he is. He's the natural heir to a fortune. So the real philanthropist is the person who brings him back home. So the devotee knows that Krishna is the owner of everything, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, Krishna is the best friend of everyone. So he does the greatest welfare work by trying to bring others back to Krishna. A devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities. And in this way, he's the dearest servitor of the, he's the, let's see, just lost my place. In this way, he's actually the friend of everyone. And he's the dearest servitor of the Lord. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, no one is more dear to me than the person who's spreading this message of Krishna consciousness and helping people come back home, back to God. Well, maybe I'll stop here for a moment and see what kind of questions you might have. Yes?
In this verse it says that you mentioned in the class the soul is always the same, and we can see the true nature of the person through their happiness and their distress. And you also mentioned that materially there is no equality, it's only on the spiritual level. So knowing that on the spiritual level we're all equal, does it mean that we relate equally to everyone, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
That we see everyone spiritually doesn't mean we relate equally to everyone. Yes. Krishna conscious person is the best friend of everyone. He's not the friend of the French and the enemy of the Germans, or vice versa. He's not the friend of the human being and the enemy of the animals. He's the friend of all living beings. He sees them all. Samadarshana, with equal vision. They're all spirit souls. They all should be happy. But he also is not unaware of the material differences. It's not that he thinks, oh, the tiger is my friend, let me embrace the tiger. He's not a fool. He sees that the tiger and the cow are equally part of Krishna. They're equally spirit souls. But it doesn't mean that I'll try to milk the tiger. So he sees both things. He sees that material bodies are different. He sees it's not that because everything is one, then, like Prabhupada said, there's one man who's going on, one professor, a doctorate, he's going on in a program in Boston. Everything is one, everything is one, everything is one. Prabhupada was trying to give him different. Finally, Prabhupada said to him, if everything is one, why don't you wear a cotton ball instead of a shirt? Took him by the shirt. Why don't you wear a cotton ball instead of a shirt? Cotton ball is the unprocessed cotton as it's there on the plant. If everything's one, why don't you wear a cotton ball instead of a shirt? So everything is one, but there's difference materially also. So the devotee sees that, but he sees that that's superficial. He tries to be helpful, friendly toward all living beings, but he's careful. At the same time, he's not a fool.
There are some Christian mystics whom I appreciate a lot, just like the Krishna devotees. And maybe you heard about San Francisco of Assisi, a very famous Christian mystic. And their philosophy is that if we want to, I was reading this yesterday, I would like to have a point of view. They say that if we want to kill a spiritual movement, we just put the motion of the the money matter. We just put money inside. We just bring money and it can kill the spirit of of the vision. And for them, they don't deal with withdraw from money, touching money, and because they say that one must be very pure. It's very sacred to deal with money. Otherwise, if we take the money, even if it is on a small level for some personal purpose, we may have some reaction if it is not from God.
Mhm.
So that.
The followers of Saint Francis of Assisi were told, see that by money one becomes contaminated.
I didn't catch it.
By money one becomes contaminated,
There is a risk.
materialistic, and so they don't want anything. They put aside money. They renounce money. They don't want anything to do with money because the money will bring them to materialism. Yeah. What do we think of that? Of course, it's very good. The materialists are thinking the more money, the better. And they're very attached to their money. They want to enjoy and gather money by hook or by crook. So if we think, no, this money is causing trouble, let me renounce money, that's very good. But better is to see who the money really belongs to. Suppose I find a wallet here in the temple room. If I pick up the wallet and put it in my pocket, I'm a thief. But if I just leave the wallet where it is, then I'm a fool. Some other person may pick up the wallet and put it in his pocket now. But better is, whose wallet is this? I find the owner and I give it back to the owner. I don't become materialistic. I didn't claim this is my wallet. I see this belongs to this person. So the materialist, he wants money for himself. And some spiritualists, no, we don't want money. But the advanced transcendentalists, no, this money belongs to Krishna. So let it be used for the service of Krishna. So they're not thieves, but they're not fools. Krishna is the owner of everything. So let it be used for Krishna. But anasaptasya, without attachment, not that in the name of using it for Krishna, I'm really doing something for myself. But genuinely, that without attachment, let me just give this, just like the wallet, right? I'm not taking my fee. First I'll take out $20, then I give you my wallet, your wallet. I just, sir, this is your wallet, you must withdraw. So you give everything to Krishna, and you'll never be entangled. Something else? Yes.
So, Krishna says we're the best friends of all living entities, but a lot of living entities, they don't see us like that. They see us as bothering them and nuisance and nonsense, and so hard to live with it.
Then Krishna says the devotee is the best friend, but not everyone thinks that we're the best friends. They call us bad names and maybe send police after us or whatever it is. But still, the devotee doesn't stop being their friend. The doctors sometimes go to some place where there's an epidemic and inoculate people. And sometimes the people protest, Or the child, they give a child an injection and the child's crying. But the doctor doesn't think that, oh, the child is crying. So, or sometimes the doctor imposes some regime and the patients are cursing it. You're causing me so much pain. But the doctor knows that no, little pain, but ultimately it will work for the welfare of that person. A crazy man especially, crazy men, you try to hold him back. I'm cursing you. Trying to punch you out, maybe. So sometimes they have to restrain these crazy people. Or drowning men, those who've taken training in rescuing people in the water. They know to keep this person, you hold on to him, but you keep him a little distant. Because they can fight you, they can, yeah. So, in any case, I don't know, but in any case, the doctor's not dissuaded, or the friends are not dissuaded. Or sometimes, what is this? People who are drunk and their friends say to them, that we have to take you home now. La 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 la. I'm not gonna la 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 la. No, we're taking you home. No, you're not going to drive. So no matter what he says, they're his friend. So the devotee, people may call him bad names, or people may protest, or people may retaliate. But he goes on being their friend. That's the quality of the devotee. He knows that actually this is the real need of every living entity. Yes?
A little sad to speak about this point is you spoke about the distress that it's from forgetfulness of Krishna.
Mm.
And you mentioned different examples, and there is one we can experiment sometime, and it's a big pain for us when we have relationship problems with devotees.
Mm.
And sometimes we are supposed to see just a soul and like this. And sometimes I was listening some devotees making discrimination about dress or about way of pain of brushing the hair, whatever, And even some of us, we try to do the best, and sure we are trying the best. But sometimes we are making mistakes. Like for example, in this moment, perhaps I am making a mistake speaking about this point, but I met some devotees. They have responsibilities to bring people to one service or whatever.
Bring people
to help people to make a service, and suddenly because something was upsetting them for good or not good reason.
Let's see if I'm going to hold you for a moment because I have to make sure I've understood you so far.
Yes.
I can only, my hearing's not that great. Let's see how we do. We want to see everyone as our friend. Then we come to the case of devotees. We're all supposed to be our friends, naturally.
And we are not.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we are not.
But sometimes friendship seems to be interrupted.
Yeah.
And something happens, we do something or they do something.
We say we make an obstacle for somebody
We make
to
an
do
obstacle
a service
for someone.
instead of helping somebody in their service. This is the true friendship.
Sometimes instead of helping people, we create some obstacle in their service.
Yeah, and we
And
say,
something about hair.
yeah, about the dress. Somebody can say you are a clochard because you are dressing like this, or you are a bunyon. I listen
You're a-
this, you know. Translate. I don't know.
We criticize people's dress
One
or their
devotee,
hair.
yeah, he say he's so insignificant and I don't know how to say, indigent and so poor
So
and so dirty or
insignificant,
whatever.
we focus on
No.
those things.
Yeah, about the dress. It's a devotee, advanced devotee. It's me.
Mm.
So very sad about this, and I am trying my best to speak, to reveal my mind, my heart in the best way. Sure, I do not the best all the time, but I am trying. And in the same time, few months ago happened, so few years, and I am
You found
I feel pain still now. So what I try my
Pain,
best for
actually.
speaking, but inside of myself, I feel bad about this point.
so you're trying to help and bring about harmony, but sometimes it's not working and you're feeling bad.
Because I am, yes, because I am not in the harmony state
Because you're not?
myself. Truly, because I am not really deeply in the harmony state. Because I have the hurt of that, about this point.
For sure.
I have the hurting.
You're
I
hurting
receive-
it,
yeah,
so-
yeah.
Okay. Well, what can we say? The first thing is that naturally devotees should be friendly with everyone. That's one of the 26 qualities of a devotee. He's friendly. And with whom should he be more friendly than with other devotees? So the devotees, as those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, they should try to be friendly. And what's the other word? It's in the Bhagavad Gita, but elsewhere it said a dosha darshi. But not fault finding. Not fault finding. I forgot where it is in Bhagavad Gita, but like that. The statement is there. Not to needlessly find faults with others. There's a materialistic tendency. If I can find all the faults in you, it means I'm better. You're bad, so I must be good. So we look for the faults in others. It's like a materialistic pattern of behavior, or it's a product of the modes of passion and ignorance. One takes pleasure in finding what's wrong with others. As Prabhupada says, the bees look for nectar and the flies look for pus. So when we develop the materialistic mentality, then finding faults. So we should try to be above the materialistic, what's the word, goods and bads of the material platform, the dualities of the material platform, and look for the good in all living beings. And especially to see the good in the devotees. They're serving Krishna. And the nature of human dealings, we don't get along with everyone. Some people are very, gentle, and some people are more assertive. Some people are very, a little proud. Some people are very humble by nature. Some people are loud, and some people kind of humble. There's something that can't really express what they're and some people are sure they're right, and in fact, a lot of people are sure they're right, even though they disagree with one another. They're all sure of some different right thing, and so they're in opposition to one another on account of what they're sure of. So we live in a world of diversity. The criticism was made of the Hare Krishna devotees, the young Hare Krishna devotees. When you join the Hare Krishna movement, then you lose your individuality. They're all the same. You become just another, Hare Krishna robot. But anyone who's stayed in our society for some time knows that it's just the opposite. We have such diversity, we could hardly handle it. So Srila Prabhupada said we need to learn the art of creating unity in diversity. Now, that doesn't mean that every kind of diversity is acceptable. You know, I express my individuality by smoking hashish, for example. Then the devotees may have to say, you know, I'm sorry for Wu, but you know, we really can't accommodate your inclinations because we're trying to build a community on certain principles which you're not following. So not that everything goes. That's of course, you know, one of our 4 regular principles. And we have other principles that we follow. We have a certain way of life that we're trying to aspire for. And so there may be other things that we say, no, not really right. Not that we, you know, everything is great. Whatever you do is like wonderful. But then there's an art to it also. How to try to bring people upward and not crush them. If we, even Prabhupada said that we don't want to break people, but we want to help them come to the right standard. So that takes some tact, some art. Prabhupada gave the example of instructing the daughter-in-law by instructing the daughter. The daughter-in-law is doing something in Indian culture. Typically the son marries and the wife joins the family of the husband, and they're living with the parents of the husband. And so the daughter-in-law is under the, what would you say, the rule of the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is the senior woman in the house, and the daughter-in-law is the junior. And that can create friction. But the wise mother-in-law instructs the daughter-in-law indirectly. She knows if I say to the daughter-in-law, don't do it that way, you're messing up. This is not the way to do it. Then the daughter-in-law may take offense. My mother-in-law is always criticizing me. I can't do anything right. She's always insulting me. So the mother-in-law, instead of criticizing the daughter-in-law, criticizes her own daughter. You're not doing that right. You're messing it up. So didn't I teach you? This is how you do it. And the daughter-in-law doesn't take any offense because, well, it's not directed at me. But the daughter-in-law gets the instruction that I shouldn't do it this way, I should do it that way. Oh yeah, she's not criticizing me, but I do the same thing. So it's a tactful way of instruction. So this is culture. A cultured person, a gentle person, knows how to bring people around without, or how to bring people up, but not crush them. And it doesn't always work. You know, there are cases where we have to say, I'm sorry, you know, you have to leave. You know, hashish once, you know, we didn't do anything hashish twice, but now it's, you know, the 3rd time we ask you to stop, you promise to stop. And we don't have space for this. So sometimes that's what it is. Even in the family, sometimes the parents say, I'm sorry, you can't stay in this house if you're going to do this. It's not because they hate the child. There are limits. So communities always face this sort of issue. Where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the limits? How can we get people together and not fight over small things? And the best way is to keep the big thing in mind, that we're all trying to serve Krishna. And we take it for granted that people are sincere and people can, if they're not meeting the standard, then they can come up. And we try. We try to overlook small things and look for the good. If there's like a little flame, a little spark somewhere, if you can fan that spark, it may become a fire. So Prabhupada knew that art, and taught us that art, how to appreciate the good in someone.
And what to do if I was all the time, most of my time doing this, what you say, saying the good, the good. But now I feel that I just want to say, no this, I disagree with this. So what to do with myself with this
Chant Hare
tendency?
Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Please blessing for this. Thank you.
But, as she said, sometimes we have to say things, we have to develop some communication format, and there's so many classes and seminars in ISKCON, non-violent communication, etc. So we have to use this also, we cannot just...
Yeah, it's better if we communicate by friendly words than by hitting one another with sticks. That is better. Non-violent communication. But this is an art. This is culture. It's not, we have philosophy, and then we want to have culture also. And part of culture is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu encapsulates the essence of culture. Amani namani deva. To be very humble, to be very tolerant, to offer respect to everyone, and not to expect respect for ourselves.
And when it's about another devotee, when you see that it's another devotee who is criticized, when you see that it's somebody else, we know that we can.
Yeah,
so it's difficult to find
it's
a
difficult,
nice
but
way.
we have to learn these things, how to create harmony amidst differences.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it goes one way, and sometimes another. Sometimes we have to take a stand, sometimes we have to draw a line, and sometimes we have to just tolerate. So it takes a little maturity, and a lot of tolerance, and knowledge also, that not just sentiment that, whatever everybody does, it's fine. We just encourage them to places where we say, absolutely this can't happen, out. You're dealing wrongly with children. We have not very much tolerance. We say, we understand that we draw lines because we have the community welfare first, and then we sympathize with you, but we're not going to sacrifice everything for you. The children have to be protected, women have to be protected, old people have to be guarded.
So I'm very curious about this discussion of fault finding, something that troubles me a lot, I mentioned earlier about envy, I struggle with. So for example, right now, during this lecture, at some point I feel some envy of you, and I see also I find some faults in
well, if you found fault, that you probably saw the reality.
I feel envious of the way you present Krishna consciousness and intelligence and humor like that. So how do I change this? Because it made me not appreciate as much as I want to. So how do I?
So when I was speaking, you were feeling envious of me.
So what do I do in that moment when I feel this envy?
Well, sorry that I'm the example. but by appreciation.
But how? But I've heard this so many times. I should just learn to appreciate. But how do I actually make the change? It seems something that happens by itself.
I was hearing a lecture, a class by Satchidananda Maharaj a few days ago, and he was referencing something from the Yoga Sutras called Pratipaksha Bhavana. And the reference had to do with the understanding that we get in an obsessed kind of mentality, where we just find faults. Always going on, he did this to me, and it was all his fault, and he's so stupid, and he acts that way with everyone, and he doesn't even have half a brain, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the mind loves this. It's like just a festival for the contaminated mind. And so pratipaksha, prati means the opposite. Pratipaksha, the opposite side. To fight this, you just go the opposite way. Find something good. Or find something you like. Find something you can be grateful for. By gratitude, we can overcome this. So by appreciation. We hear that Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, sometimes there'd be a meeting of the devotees, and he would formally say, now we're going to ask Satchidananda to glorify Govindadas. But now we're going to ask Trivikram Maharaj to glorify Govindadas. In this way, ask the devotee. And he might know that there was some conflict between the two.
This person.
But he would ask them, now such and such person will glorify. And then when you start to all right, Guru Maharaj's orders, and you find so many good things. He dedicated his life to the mission, he joined at an early age, he gave up the wealth of his father, he went into something. Now you can't go on about how, he doesn't know how to manage, he speaks harshly to people, he's proud of his education, he's blah, 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 blah. You can go on that way, but that's not what was ordered. Now find the good. So that's called Pratipaksha.
I feel this envy in my heart, how it actually changes.
Just go on the other road.
It seems
There's
not
the
just
road
to
of
me,
envy,
so
and there's the
different.
road of appreciation.
And it's a conscious choice I can make.
Just like there's a switch, you switch it on, or you switch it this way, or you switch it that way. You switch it this way, it's red. You switch it that way, it's yellow or green. So the mind just goes, it'll go on and on and on. You wake up in the morning and start chanting your japa, and the mind is already going on. It's, why are they? Don't they know? I don't know if I can tolerate the way they blah blah blah. But I'm supposed to be absorbed in the nectar of the holy name, but the mind wants to enjoy criticism. So one has to control the mind by the intelligence. Higher than the mind is the intelligence. So just with intelligence, do I want to spend the next hour or the next 10 minutes? Yeah.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's very painful.
So all right, let me change.
Yes.
Change the switch. Let me see some good there. Or, if you think that perhaps I speak in a good way, then good. Could I learn that? Could I do that? No use just being. But I can also maybe learn that. We can find fault anywhere, we can find some good.
Srila Prabhupada often talked about unity and diversity. we understand that we come to this movement from different angles, the different baggage, as we often say. Is it not that this society, the process which we're hoping to apply in our lives gets to a more of a root, let's say a root of the problem of envy? Most of the issues we have, envious issues, whatever form they take on the surface, is there something environmental we can add to the specifics of, let's say, just
Is there something environmental we can add?
Well, add, but I mean express that will help everyone to kind of like find more unity or more freedom from the root problem of seeing ourselves in the center and so on and so forth.
Well, okay. I did some reading in conflict theory one time for a paper I was working on. And we're a bit in a paradox for this reason. That we're a small group of people who share something very important that the rest of the world doesn't have or even doesn't like. They stand in opposition, or at least outside of, they don't share our values. And we highly value unity. And we've dedicated our lives. This all creates an atmosphere ripe for conflict. How is that? Let's suppose that we're both members of, I may be a business executive and you may be a business owner, and you may be a this and you may be a that, and we all belong to the same sports club. And maybe we're even on the board of the sports club. And because we're all members, or because we're all board members, we disagree sometimes. You think that the new tennis court should be here, and I think it should be there. You think that the finances should be managed this way, I think they should be managed that way. So we disagree. But it's not a big deal, because the sports club is only a small thing in my life. I have so many other things going on. And if we disagree about the tennis court or the finances, then it's not the end of the world. And the sports club doesn't really place a high premium on, we all have to agree, we all have to be together. So I blow it off and I say, Frank, I think you're nuts. That's the craziest place in the world for a tennis court. And, that's just the stupidest idea I ever heard in my life, and so on and so on. And I blow off the steam, and then I go, and then tomorrow we forgot the whole thing, and we're friends, and it's never a big deal to begin with. So the conflicts get sort of blown off, because we freely express them, and because they're just a small part of our lives. But when you're in a group that's very tight, very close-knit, and where unity is very important, because the rest, we're standing in distinction or opposition, whichever way it might be, to the rest of the world, then, we have to be together. There has to be unity. And we've dedicated our whole lives to this, so it's not just a small thing, that this is my life. So what happens? We suppress differences of opinion for the sake of keeping unity. But these differences of opinion still go on, and at some point they break out. And then all the what's the word, suppressed, or all the issues that we've set aside, they all get loaded on this one big issue, if the volcano erupts or the earthquake happens, then every time you said something about my wife that I always resented. You took my shoes, you did this, you do that. It all gets loaded on this one thing, and it's well, that can happen. So we need to. So we're working in an environment that has that paradox, that unity is important to us. We do want to dedicate our lives. We do recognize that what we're doing is different from what other people are doing. Therefore, we have to recognize that when controversy breaks out, it can really break out big time. And when controversy breaks out, then everything can get loaded on something that otherwise might not really be very important at all. We're going to put the Goshala here, we're going to put the Goshala there, we can fix this first and fix that first. It all becomes. So recognizing that, you should be always, again, see the good side. Take great trouble to see the good side. That these are all devotees who've dedicated their lives. And we have to remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example, his instruction, to be humble, to be respecting everyone. And not join the crazy culture also of just a simple thing. If you want to improve relations among devotees by someplace between 100 and 800%, it's real easy. Just stay off Facebook. Just stay off social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Because the nature of the internet is that it creates dissent. It was supposed to be the global village and it all brings everyone together. But people who work with social media know that it creates awful dissent. Things I'd never say to you in person, I'll say on the internet, or to you. So that's one thing you can do. Just stay off social media. And you won't miss anything, and your life will be so much happier. And if you can't stay off social media, stay off arguments on social media. Yes.
Okay, so my experience and observation after 40 years in this school is there's not enough real, honest communication and asking for feedback, because then you avoid a lot of problems, Okay, how was it? So many things are not talked about, and then it's behind in the hallway and everything.
Well, yeah,
so I think it's a big problem.
People are leaving because, like me, we have time limits. And I don't want to duck out on your question, but now it's getting to details of how do we manage our social communications, and that becomes a larger topic. How do we communicate honestly with one another, openly with one another? That becomes more than 5 minutes of an answer.
Next time.
And it's also not that I'm the world's expert on these things, I've studied Bhagavad Gita, but it doesn't mean I'm a world communication expert.
We have some.
We have some world of communication experts. Yeah, invite them over. I don't claim to be one of them. But the essence of it is, therefore, we understand. We always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. But then, all right, then there's details. How do we manage this? Whether it's communications or finance or education or agriculture or any of the many things that matter to us, the deity worship.